I'm right here with Mr. Khalid Samad right here, man. Peace in the Hood organization. So y'all pretty much know what that means. You know, that's what we need, peace in the hood. We don't really have that here in Cleveland, Ohio. You know, all right. But, you know, one thing I really want to know. First of all, are you aware of what's going on in Chicago with all the murders and killings, right? And right now, I think we spoke about this on the show last week, but they had a summit where they called out all the gang leaders, and the parole officers made them come. And the police chief showed up and the superintendent, and they basically gave them an ultimatum, which was a threat. Either control the troops under you and your so-called gangs, or we're going to hold you as a leader responsible. And they were arguing the fact, how could you hold us responsible for others when, you know, the mayor or the governor or the president is not held responsible for his subordinates? Now, when you got things like that going on, you got grassroots organizations all across the country trying to eliminate the same thing you're doing, crime and poverty amongst black people. I mean, you know, what is the mindset? Is it a networking mindset when you go out?
Well, you know, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, I always greet our brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum, hotep, baragani, free the land, revolution for everybody. We need peace in our organizations and in our families. And one thing that God is the author of peace. I want to thank brothers and sisters from Hollywood Hood for inviting me. And you know, our theme has always been one God, one hood, one love, one destiny. You know, and so consequently, we know our people have been miseducated, misinformed. They suffer from illusions of differences, that mistaken thinking. So the solution is a checkup from the neck up, and that begins in the thinking, that mistaken thinking. And with that knowledge and understanding of self and God and community, and then organizing upon what you have in common, will allow us to overcome those illusionary differences. What you talked about in Chicago is a symptom. The problem is brothers and sisters in Chicago have been miseducated, and the FBI and the counterintelligence program and the CIA engaged in massive disruption of African-American leadership. A brother by the name of Fred Hampton was assassinated. There were attempts to take all of the leadership of street organizations off the street in Chicago. When we came in with the truce and the ceasefire in 1992, the homicide rate went down immediately because the drama and the trauma was being bought by street organizations. So when we bought the truce, ceasefire, and the peace treaty, right away, those forces of the government that were connected to the Central Intelligence Agency and the counterintelligence program went in and undid a lot of that work. So the summit they were talking about just a few weeks ago wasn't a summit, it was a roundup. There was a perpetuation of a falsehood that was established by a group named Ceasefire that also was a part of the CIA and the FBI and the Illuminati. So we're at war with principalities.
Now, all of us, we all heard of so-called wars like war on crime, war on drugs, war on poverty. Now, do you ever wonder to yourself why the government or why people in power don't empower you or fund your organizations or your train of thought and help stem those systemic problems?
Well, it's the same reason why people with money won't get behind organizations and initiatives and young entrepreneurs like yourself and fund you and invest in everything you're doing, because you bring a creative message, an empowering message, and they don't want empowerment in our community. They want disempowerment. So as long as they see an empowering movement going on amongst the masses of people, they don't want to compete with that. And just like we're talking about today, in a studio right here in a hood that has historical significance, right. You understand? And the very thing that's going on right here today in real time with these young people that you have here should not represent a threat. It should represent the future and a vision for empowerment. Right. But people who are based upon evil and negativity, I mean, they see everything as positive as a threat. And so in Chicago and L.A., when we put the troops and the ceasefires together in 92 and 93 and the summit in 93 in Kansas City, that was a movement that reduced crime and violence and gang activity all around the country, right. More so than what the FBI and the police had done. And we documented our success, and we measured it, and we had outcomes and showed it and documented for the President of the United States at the time, Bill Clinton. He turned around and sicked the dogs on everybody because they didn't want the drugs out of the community. Because one thing about it, in slavery in America, prison and the criminal prison industrial complex is still in full effect. And private industries are some of the biggest growing industries in America today, where they get cheap capital goods based upon the slave labor of young black and young brown, male and female incarcerated brothers and sisters in these penitentiaries. So that's the name of the game. Slavery is in full effect because Lincoln never outlawed slavery when he signed that constitutional amendment.
That's right. Now, we all know that these problems have been going on for years, longer than some of us been alive. And you got to say to ourselves, I know we're hearing the same message. And we grow up and our colleagues went to school with us. They have political aspirations. Do you feel like they hear you when they're coming up, and then when they're in office, it's a different situation?
No doubt about it, brother. We have to keep them accountable because, see, in every other hood, whether it's Little Italy, a little Ireland, a little Japanese, a little whatever it is, there's the elders that have the influence over those that come up under them. And they bring resources and political capital together to put young people in office that represent their interests. But in the hood, it's the other way around. They don't respect the elders. They don't have any respect for those that follow in their footsteps. And they don't have a relationship with the Creator. So they don't feel accountable because nobody gets out of life alive. Everybody's going to meet the Creator one day. So, you know, the best thing is to do the right thing here because they say everything you do is going to be like a DVD played back in your life. And you're going to be dead long, you're going to be alive. So it's best to invest in doing the right thing, and God would bless that effort. But if they don't have the knowledge of self, if they never read The Miseducation of Negro by Carter G. Woodson, they don't know anything about Afrocentric thought or the spirituality that came out of Kemet. The brother was in here talking about martial arts. I was in Egypt. On the walls within the pyramid is the original martial arts. You know, the original Tai Chi and Kung Fu. So all of that comes right out of that Nile Valley. And what you're doing here today is a new Nile Valley mentality brought forward in this new millennium because you're getting the word out real time on this video and on these DVDs and on the internet. And that's what our young people need today, is to be educated real time.
Now, are you in communication with so-called political prisoners?
You have a brother by the name of H. Rap Brown is my spiritual leader. You have Dr. Matulu Shakur and many of the brothers and sisters that are out of Chicago. Oh, yeah. They're all in the Supermax prison out underground in Colorado. And these are the political prisoners that the United States don't want to admit that they have. H. Rap Brown, who is an outgrowth of the civil and the black power movement. Dr. Matulu Shakur, who is an acupuncturist, who is now being held illegally in Supermax prison. Jeff Fort, the founder of the Blackstone Rangers out there. Minister Rico, the vice lords from Chicago, is out there. And many of the other heroes that were part of the movement to deal with what you're talking about today. They got them in Supermax prison. They locked down. They're actually being tortured psychologically because of the fact that they're on 23-hour lockdown right now. You know, and so therein lies the solution to our problem. They let those brothers out and bring them back into the hoods of Chicago and L.A. with the kind of guidance that they can provide to the streets. Those murder rates would go down in Chicago immediately.